Welcome to Arizona's Foundation Bridge Forum Part 2, Time for Change 2020 series. We're here today at the beautiful W Hotel on 7277 East Camelback Road in Scottsdale, Arizona. A big thanks to Sean Yari and the entire W Hotel staff for hosting us today. And for those of you watching our live stream across the nation, welcome. My name is Ron Williams, president of the Arizona Foundation, U.S. Air Force Desert Storm Era veteran, and honored to serve as your master of ceremonies for this important forum today. We're very happy to welcome this distinguished gentleman back. He served as moderator for Part 1 and is back from Washington, D.C. to moderate Part 2. The nationally respected Dr. Benjamin Chavis Jr. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you for coming down, sir. This forum is the second half of a two-part series discussing what it's like to be Black in America and how to take focused action to reach equality. This invitation-only event is a collaborative effort between law enforcement, Arizona government, business, and community leaders. This Bridge Forum, Time for Change, is the 10th Bridge Forum series hosted by the Arizona Foundation to understand different perspectives, attitudes, and beliefs about community policing. Today's forum will focus on current events within the Black community and law enforcement to examine how communities can work together with police to create equality in our nation. These Bridge Forums have a proven track record as an essential tool in bridging that gap. We applaud those municipalities that have taken action and implemented changes as a result of our Bridge Forums. Again, the goal of today's Bridge Forum is to assist the Black community in moving from peaceful protest to action towards equality. Because this forum, these images, these discussions will archive this moment in our history. Now, after Part 1 in Phoenix, there was a repeated and overwhelming question online about who was in our live in-studio audience. So we'll answer that today, so bear with me. In addition to the police chiefs, elected officials, educators, spiritual leaders, business and community leaders, our audience is represented by the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, African American Clergy Coalition, Goldwater Institute, National Coalition of 100 Black Women of Phoenix, NAACP Arizona State Conference, NAACP Maricopa County Branch, NAACP East Valley Branch, Sikh Community, Arizona Chamber of Commerce, Scottsdale Municipal Court, Islamic Bureaus, Speakers Bureau of Arizona, Valley of the Sun Jewish Community Center, Asian American Association, Scottsdale City Council, Scottsdale Community College, Greater Phoenix Urban League, Local First Arizona, Urban League Young Professionals, 100 Black Men of Phoenix, Scottsdale Maserati, Black Chamber of Arizona, Scottsdale Human Relations Commission, LGBT Liaison for the City of Scottsdale, Scott Patton Boggs, Arizona Board of Regents, Dow Law Offices, Arizona Expanded Chamber of Commerce, Attorney General's Office, and the Arizona Manufacturing Council. Now, why do we do that? If it was important to ask, it was important enough to answer. I know that some of you we missed individually, so a heartfelt apology and thank you for joining our audience today. I certainly want to thank everyone who supports the Arizona Foundation and the work we do in Arizona and across the nation. Thank you to today's sponsors, Vitania Brain Performance Centers, represented by Michael James Southworth is here with us today. And I do want to mention that Governor Ducey just made this announcement, and I'll share just a little bit of it. The governor announced $120,000 to support the first responders' mental health. Through this relationship with Heal the Heroes Foundation, Virtania's expertise with brain performances will be key to that relationship. So thank you, Virtania, for your support. Back to our sponsors. Scottsdale Maserati, represented by Chad Morgan. Salt River Project, SRP. The City of Scottsdale representative, we have the mayor, vice mayor. I'll tell you a little bit about the mayor in a second. Chief of Police and city council members. Maricopa County, represented by County Supervisor Steve Chuckery, District 2. And NBA's Phoenix Suns, represented by President and CEO Jason Rowley, also a U.S. Navy veteran. Major League Baseball's Arizona Diamondbacks and the Kendrick family. The Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Evolve Public Relations and Marketing, represented by Jennifer Kaplan today. And lastly, the W Hotel, represented by co-founder and managing principal Sean Yaree. Last but not least, the Arizona Foundation Board of Directors, represented by our founders, Alan A.P. Powell, Aaron Bear, Keith McCarter, Dennis Prince. Just wanted to let you know, we just got feedback that they can't hear us online. Just an FYI. They couldn't hear me. Again, our founders, Alan A.P. Powell, Aaron Bear, Heath McCarter, Dennis Prince, and myself, Ron Williams. Let's please give our sponsors a round of applause. Thank you. And to our supporters, who you will hear from shortly. One, the mayor of Scottsdale. I'll tell you a little bit about him in a minute. U.S. Congressman, Arizona 6th District, David Schweikert. Maricopa County Supervisor, District 2, Steve Chuckery, and the President and CEO of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, Mark Stanton. And I'd be remiss if I didn't personally thank the man and the company that drives everything we do. He is a marketing and branding guru. I want to say thank you to Heath McCarter, owner of Golden Rule Live. And again, a huge thanks to our host, the W Hotel. Let's give a round of applause for our supporters. Okay, we have a robust agenda, so I'll get right into our program. To open our program, it is my distinct pleasure to bring to the podium a true soldier and a man of action. He is a U.S. Army Gulf War veteran, national strategist, and humanitarian, who, as we speak, is leading the charge of the largest COVID-19 testing effort in the United States of America, as reported nationally on CNN, Good Morning America, and other local and national TV outlets across America. Along with Aaron Bear, he is the founder of the Arizona Foundation and is the vision behind today's 10th Bridge Forum. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Alan A.P. Powell. Let's give him a round of applause.
Good morning. I want to welcome everyone to the beautiful W Hotel here in Scottsdale for the second Scottsdale Bridge Forum. Our foundation launched the Bridge Forum about 5 years ago in response to Ferguson and Baltimore. Now this is the second Bridge Forum discussion in the greater Phoenix area in the past 2 weeks. And the second in Scottsdale following our 2017 Bridge Forum that led to 28 changes in the Scottsdale Police Department with the leadership of Chief Lobel. In the wake of the senseless deaths of George Floyd and many other people of color, Arizona needs to continue having this conversation. We need to protect our communities and create respect for the job police do for our community. The Bridge Forum has created a platform for change, and now it's time to make some changes, bridge some gaps, and listen with empathy. Arizona Foundation plans to expand the Bridge Forum, taking it to other American market cities in the upcoming weeks. We'll be in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown, Indianapolis, Indiana, Cleveland, Ohio, with the help of Squire Patty Boggs and Rick Steele. And New York also, we will have a conversation to impact this important issue. I want to express my deepest thanks to this morning to Mayor Lane, who can be with us today at the surgery. He's here with I also want to thank all of our panelists who are distinguished citizens in their own right for joining us this morning to take part in this conversation. Perhaps most of all, I want to thank our moderator and civil rights icon, the Reverend Dr. Benjamin F. Chambers, who flew again from Washington, D.C. to be a part of this effort. Dr. Chambers was with us 2 weeks ago in Phoenix, and he's here again with us again. Thanks so much, Dr. Chambers, for lending your wisdom and leadership to keep this effort going. Again, thanks everyone for joining us today in Scottsdale and across the country on Facebook Live. We appreciate your continued support. May God bless the city of Scottsdale and continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, AP. Next on our agenda, we have our invocation, followed by the singing of the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. As you stand for the singing of the national anthem, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, for our invocation, please join me in welcoming to the podium the next generation men's executive pastor of Impact Church, Pastor Tremel Orr. Let's welcome him to the podium.
Good morning. Thank you guys for this opportunity on behalf of our lead pastor, Travis Hurd, and executive pastor, Andre Wadsworth. I want to thank all the men and women that are here today for this amazing conversation that you're having. So let's pray together as we open. Jesus, we thank you for all the men and women today. We thank you as we gather together and talk about a topic that's dear to your heart. We pray, Father, for wisdom. We pray for clarity. And God, most of all, we pray for your spirit to be here with us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please turn your attention to the flag. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. I pledge allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Next on our agenda, we have Harold Branch III. We call him HB. He's a speaker, trainer, entrepreneur, and poet originally from the west side of Chicago, but make no mistake, he is a proud Phoenix resident. His life story was featured in an MTV documentary, and he is the renowned founder of one of the country's largest open mic poetry events called Home-Based Poetry. To share a piece he wrote back in 1999 called I Can't Breathe, please welcome Harold Branch III. Let's give him a round of applause. Peace, good morning. Most people never met a poet before, and it's mixed feelings being here reciting a poem I wrote 20 years ago.
because it's just as real. And the same thing that made me write this poem as a student at ASU is the same thing that got me having conversations with my 15-year-old son. So I have feelings about that. Because the whole point for poets is to speak and be heard. That's all. I hope you hear it. And I hope we don't have to recite it in 20 years, 5 years. I can't breathe. The bow of racism is constricting me, preventing me from living to my full potential, convicting me on premises that are inconsequential, like my vehicle. Being mental is fundamental for surviving. You gotta be complex because the simple brothers are dying, relying on sex and drugs to get them to the next step, until they become the victim of disease and a loss of breath. I can't breathe. The asthma of police got me gasping. All I have to do is exist, and they're harassing, laughing, asking me questions with disrespect as if they want a negative reaction so they can have an excuse to blast in my chest. With bullets my taxes paid for. Grateful when they pass me and don't harass me, like they did me a favor. So I tend to put my head back and relax, and it's my new victory savor. Because these officers got me looking for air, huffing and puffing, as if I was in labor. I can't breathe, but my heart bleeds like a blind man without braille and a need to read. I fail to believe that I would be respected for my color or my creed. Some don't see that I breathe for my mother and my seed. Survival is my lover, and we just had a daughter named Succeed. Similar to the leaves, I wonder where this breeze would lead me. The sun sees me as the wind breathes me and exhales destiny. I surrender my mind to the right hand of God and give his left the rest of me. But some still attempt to rightfully arrest my respiratory, squeeze my lungs empty and suffocate the spirits with me, make the air thick with oppression so inhalation is impossible, put me in foul situations and make explanations unimaginable. Got a gun obsession and unprotected sex is casual. Love money, but study habits are less than admirable. Actually, like landing airplanes, we're on a gradual dissension. We're our own competition, America, and we're losing. Constantly choosing decisions that will hurt me and lead to our mental, spiritual, and ultimately physical death, as if Jackie during a Kersey was escaping my lungs. I'm running out of breath. I feel like the sunrise because I'm always mourning. Crying for my brothers and sisters because it seemed like we stopped growing. Like a backwards river, a letter written from right to left. We're flowing the wrong way. And as a result, my blood flow is slowing. All the knowledge I previously had, I'm no longer knowing. My chest is tightening, my veins are showing, and as fast as this multifaceted death is coming, my motivation for living is going. As a complete being, my internal systems no longer have what they need. Somebody hurry and help me, cuz I can't breathe.
Thank you, HB, for sharing your work. 20 years. 20 years. Next, before I introduce our first special guest speaker, let me just say that Mayor Jim Lane was scheduled to be here today, as you heard earlier from AP. He is a true friend and a big supporter of our foundation. When I spoke with him, he was okay with me sharing, just like AP did, that Due to recent surgery and his doctor's orders, he is resting comfortably at home and is recovering nicely. He sends his regrets for not being here with us physically, but he is with us in spirit. And if you're watching, Mayor, happy healing, Mayor Jim Lane. Stepping in for Mayor Jim Lane, we have one of our special guests from the city of Scottsdale, Vice Mayor Solange Whitehead. Ms. Whitehead began her first term on the City Council chambers January 2019. She graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in electrical engineering as an accomplished businesswoman. She was once named Arizona Wildlife Federation's Arizona Conservativist of the Year. Please join me in welcoming to the podium Vice Mayor Solange Whitehead. Let's give her a round of applause.
Well, thank you, Mr. Williams, and thank you for having me here and organizing this event. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, but I appreciate that our police department and your organization recognized the need for these discussions long before the tragic death of Mr. Floyd. 2020 has been a tough year, and somehow that poem really helped me. Thank you. From COVID-19 to the death of Mr. Floyd, it has become heartbreakingly clear that we have real racial disparities in this country and economic disparities. And these disparities are the difference between life and death, and they're undermining our country. So as leaders and as citizens, it's our moral duty to fix the system. We need to stop the killings that have become all too common, and we need to bring justice, and we need to bring economic opportunities to every American equally. So how do we do that here in Scottsdale? I see two paths forward, two different branches that we need to take. First, we need to make sure that our leaders don't just prioritize this, that the leaders in this community demand fundamental change. And that's all of your jobs. Second, we need to give voice to our constituents that have dealt with these disparities and that understand them, because they're the ones who can help all of us understand what policies, what lack of policies have enabled these to exist, have enabled these to perpetuate. And I'm grateful that I have a police department at the city that is interested and a willing partner to make these changes come true. So there's a lot to do. We can do it. We can either remember 2020 as the worst year ever, or we can remember 2020 as the year that we brought justice to all Americans. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Solange Whitehead. Our next special guest is the U.S. Congressman from Arizona's 6th District. Please join me in welcoming Congressman David Schweiker. Let's welcome him to the podium. Thank you.
I'm still trying to figure out how to do this the right way. How many of you in this room have had the experience where you walk towards the microphone and you're trying to figure out exactly what you're allowed to say and what you should say? Yeah. 30-some years ago, I was one of the chair people for Arizona to have an MLK holiday. And we had get-togethers just like this 30 years ago, having the same type of conversation. Your poem, 20 years. Can I beg of you, and look, this comes from, I grew up in this neighborhood. I accept my life experiences are very different than many of you. I do mostly economics. I do Medicare finance, I do trade, I do statistics. I want us to think through an actual holistic solution that's not beyond just Scottsdale, beyond just Arizona, but is for our entire community, our entire society. And if that's true, what is the greatest civil rights obligation of our society? I think about this in actual a lot, and I will argue it's opportunity. If you're growing up in a school district that's crappy, is that a civil rights violation? If you're growing up in an area where the way healthcare is delivered, it's a model that doesn't work for you and your family. If you're growing up in a house where you want to become an entrepreneur, you just want to start a little tiny business, and the zoning restrictions shut you down. We see this in certain public housing where African-American females are at the very top quartile of being entrepreneurial, yet we stop them from starting that little business in their housing. A lot of us, and I've tried to ponder on this from my worldview, which we all have a different one, is a lot of us use the word systemic racism. And I've been rethinking that. I will make you an argument. This comes more as an economics mindset. It's institutional. We have designed rules, government mechanisms that may work for some, but crush others. Who in this room is willing to have, because you're willing to have the conversation around the way we use policing. And I want you to go even further. The police chief and I just had 30 seconds over on the side talking about, I believe there's technology revolutions of non-lethal, of a bracelet you can put on someone and check their health and know they're going to be okay. I need you to think like visionaries, but I need you also to think like revolutionaries. How would you revolutionize the way we have education in some of our toughest neighborhoods? How would you revolutionize the way we deliver healthcare? And I have entire videos I do on the floor of the house on this one. There's a revolution of healthcare. We can make people so much healthier and break out of this world where I have to find a babysitter, I have to find a kid on a bus, I have to get to the hospital. That's crazy in today's technology. I will also make you an argument that if you're going to help people, help them have opportunity. If you have someone that wants to start that little business in their back bedroom, help them do it. Because the difficult question is, there one of us, probably not me, but one of us going to be back in this room 30 years, 20 years, having the same damn conversation. Because how much of what we see around us is about race, and how much of it is also about economics, class. And if that's a part of it, if that's a big part of it, I can build you a model, I can build you an argument that can get us there. And so we're not sitting here decades from now having the same damn conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman David Swiker. Our next special guest speaker is the County Supervisor from Maricopa County District 2. Please join me in welcoming Supervisor Steve Chipre.
Good morning, and I want to thank AP and Mr. Bear for inviting me here this morning, and I'm going to pick up for a brief moment on something Congressman Schweikert said about a worldly view. And I want to share two stories with you today that are personal stories that I think are touch points for why we are here. I am the son of a Lebanese immigrant. My father, Alex, at the young age of 12 in Beirut, Lebanon, went to work with his dad. We were Christian. There was a large Muslim population there at the time. And a well-known Muslim had died. And the community wanted all store owners to shut their doors. My grandfather and his friend were shopkeepers, and they said, "We are sorry for your loss. However, we have to make a living for our family. We have to keep our family afloat. We want to keep our doors open." A fight breaks out. My grandfather goes to break it up and is stabbed to death in front of my dad at the age of 12. My dad carried him home to his pregnant mother and 3 sisters, and they immigrated to Arizona for a better life. My dad was fluent in Arabic, didn't understand English, went to Tempe High School, supported his sisters because his mother had passed away, and a gentleman by the name of Harry Mitchell, said to my father, "I need to help you because if you only can speak Arabic, you're not going to succeed." And he did. Fast forward decades later, in the 1990s, I'm in my 20s, I went to Lebanon for the first time to visit my family. And when you're in a place like that, you start to learn the neighborhood. You start to learn how you go to and from home or where I was staying. And we kept going this back way that took longer than it should have. And I said to my cousin, I said, "Why are we going down this road?" And he pulled the car over and he said, "Because certain religions live on that street." And then it came to me, we're going to continue to have unrest in the Middle East because we teach each generation to hate the next. What are we teaching ourselves? What am I teaching our 2 boys? Last year, I was in LA with my family. I'd gone for a jog. There was a Starbucks. I go outside, table for 2. It was just me. I'm having coffee. A homeless man comes up to me with a backpack, and he said, "Sir, can I sit there?" I said, "Absolutely." I got up, I pulled the chair out. He puts his backpack on the table, and he starts to cry. And he looks at me and he says, "Thank you for being nice to me." So what he was really saying was, thank you for not looking through me. Thank you for not tossing me to the side. Thank you for not ignoring me. Thank you for not looking at me as though I'm a nobody. So what's the fundamental truth of all of this? It's what's been said already. It's an amazing poem that was done 2 decades ago that's even more relevant today. And it's about the fundamental fact that if we fail to act, we're not only denying the past, we're denying the present. So I'm honored to be here today to make that change in the right direction for the 4th largest county in America, and to stand up for what is right, and not to look through somebody, but to see them as the sons and daughters of the good Lord above, who placed us on this earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dupree. Looks like we're gonna make a quick change. And while we get ready for that, we're going to go ahead and bring to the podium our next speaker, which is the President and CEO of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Mark Stanton. Are we ready? Okay, so please welcome President and CEO of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. Let's welcome Mark Stanton to the podium. Did you step out? Okay, all right. All right, so that is all of our special guest speakers. Let's give all of our special guest speakers a round of applause. Now we're going to move to our first panelists who are already seated, and I will introduce them before I bring up our moderator. So hold your applause until I introduce them all. First, we have the President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Urban League, Mr. George Dean. Wave your hand, Mr. Dean. And we're honored to have HB on our panel this morning. Poet Extraordinaire, Mr. Harold Branch III. The President of the East Valley NAACP, Mr. Roy Tatum Jr. President of the Arizona Youth and College NAACP, Ms. Armani D. Jackson. President, he wears many hats, President of the African American Clergy Coalition, Reverend Dr. Warren H. Stewart Sr. And last but not least, our very good friend, President and CEO of the NBA's Phoenix Suns. Please welcome Jason Rowley. And now let's get to the core of why we're here today. It is my distinct honor to reintroduce our moderator for today, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. In his youth, he was an assistant to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who inspired him and his work in the Civil Rights Movement. In 1980, he became the vice president of the National Council of Churches. He was the national director of the Million Man March and is currently president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Now please join me in welcoming back from D.C., Dr. Ben Chavis Jr. Let's give him a round of applause.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm very honored and very pleased to be back in Arizona. I want to thank AP Powell for inviting me to moderate this panel. My background is civil rights. I'm 72 years old. I happened to work with Dr. King for many years in the 1960s before his assassination. I bring that up because one of the things I've learned, there's been several references to time. 20 years, 30 years, 5 years, 2 weeks ago, several weeks ago. And we're still discussing the issue of race, the issue of class, the issue of disparities, the issues of inequalities. But I would say that that's not an awful thing to continue to discuss. Dr. King was a great orator. But one of the things he taught all of us on his staff was not only how to make great speeches, but to also to listen. I want to thank all of you. Reverend Stewart, there's something about the ministry of presence. You all are here this morning because of your commitment, your desire, your interest to see how we can improve where we are today. Not so much to litigate or argue about the past, but we can, in fact, make a contribution to what happens today and tomorrow, in light of the past. So I want to thank all of you for your presence. I want to thank this panel. I'm going to ask you some questions, but I'm also going to listen to your answers. And then I was talking to the chief of police here in Scottsdale. This panel is on the community, and the next panel is on the police. But the truth of the matter is, this is a collective discussion that we all need to have beyond today. I was telling AP Powell several weeks ago, I'm going to repeat it today, there's probably only one brother in America to make me get on a plane twice in 3 weeks and fly from Washington, D.C. to Arizona during the height of a pandemic. And that's AP Powell. So I'm going to give this brother a hand. He's a real leader. He's a real leader. And I know that we have to get both of these panels on and off in a certain time frame. So I'm not going to make a long speech, but I just want to express a word of gratitude to all of you this morning the elected officials who are here, the county officials, the city officials, state officials, and then the community leaders. If we are going to improve police and community relations in this community, it's going to require all of us not only to participate and to have a dialogue and a discussion together, but to work together. If anything I've learned in the civil rights movement all these years is that the real tragedy is that it takes a tragedy for us to come together. Seeing the video of George Floyd begging for his life, first from the police officer and then called on his mom. I can't breathe. And because we now live in the era of social media, and there are thousands of people watching this program right now on social media, so they're going to also listen to what is uttered, what is said. Part of my career is also, I've been involved in hip-hop, entertainment, recording. And when you're in the studio with some of these artists, they say, well, Brother Ben, I want to make sure that the public not only hears me or sees me in a video, I want to make sure they feel me. I can guarantee you, the words that are spoken today, the answers that are uttered, are going to be felt by many people who are not in this room physically, but they're in this room